Hello, I'm Ray from Ground Zero Inspections. I do a lot of home and commercial inspections, and you are interested in getting a radon test for your home or for your building. Some of the misconceptions on radon is that it's the second leading form of lung cancer. Despite that, what the CDC says and whatnot, this video is for entertainment purposes only, and I just want to cut to the chase is that if you know anything about the scientific method, it is a study of many methods that you can use in the scientific industry where you can take studies or a case study and it can be repeatable, usually with high accuracy. Radon's a little bit different. It just seems like he's the guy that they want to pick on. And so you want to get a radon test for your home, great. I'm telling you right now that the 1 day radon test sucks. Absolutely. Think of the ground if it's the day that it's raining out. Radon typically, when I do radon tests, are usually low. The day after, 2 days after, you get a spike. Now you're at high radon. 1 day radon inspections are worthless, much like the 4 day radon inspection is totally worthless. During the wintertime, radon seems to be at higher levels. During the spring and summertime seems to be lower. If you're going to do a thorough radon test, you have to do it for a full year. You have to get the average. Because during the spring, when it's raining out for 4 days, it's like taking your head, shoving it under the sink with a rag and pouring water all over it. You're not going to breathe very well. And then once the rag starts to dry up, you can breathe. Hello, the spike. Um, I'm a human being. You're a human being, right? And there in Canada and many other parts of the world, if it's any higher than 2 picocaries, they must get a radon mitigation system, as they say. But if you're an American, you live here in the States, you're required to have a radon mitigation system over 4 picocaries. So already you know that I'm not your typical home or commercial inspector. I'm not. I'm more of a realist. Show me the evidence and let me repeat the evidence so then I can show that is actually true. I haven't found one of my case studies to be anything near radon is causing the second leading form of lung cancer. Now, however, if you're a scientist and you're in a controlled laboratory with a huge aquarium and you shove it in there with a bunch of mice and then you pump it with radon, yeah, they're going to get lung cancer. I can pump different gases in there and they're going to get lung cancer anyway, right? Um, so I'm not anti radon and anti testing or anti mitigation systems for your home or your business. I'm not. But the point that I want to make is that there's a lot of skepticism to being where it is a known fact because the CDC says that it's the second form of lung cancer. I have talked to scientists. Have you? I have talked to CEOs of these radon manufacturings that make these devices that home inspectors use. Have you? Um, so just taking the grapevine of these experts is not good enough. And I don't want to blame the school systems or whatnot, but a lot of people just tend to believe because I wear a white jacket with a stethoscope and I must know because I'm educated. Let's flash back to COVID. No, let's not do that. Like I said, this is for entertainment purposes only. So you want a radon test for your home, and you're wanting to buy a home, and you have a home inspector that comes in there and does the radon test for 4 days. And then he charges you a little extra, usually about $125 to $200, to come back to pick up that, to send it to a certified lab to get the results. Well, there's a lot of problems with that. One, 4 days is not long enough. It could be the time where it's during the winter time and you're going to have high radon, almost guaranteed, and especially in certain areas in certain states. And then you have where you do a 1 day that is completely worthless. Um, I guess the point that I want to make here is that if you are not wanting to buy the home because at the time during the inspection you tested high for radon and you want the sellers to pay for a radon mitigation system, I think it's quite foolish and a lack of education. Um, so it's not just me saying this. I'm like, who am I? I'm just a home inspector. And a lot of home inspectors have no construction background and they just passed the state exam and now they're an inspector. From my point of view, I don't give a rat's ass about that. I mean, there's quite a few home inspectors out there that have no construction experience, and they're great inspectors. But then you got the guys that are in the construction industry, and then they're biased. For instance, might have a retired plumber that now wants to be a home inspector. He'll blow the crap out of the plumbing, but leaves out the electrical and the HVAC systems. So sometimes I think that somebody that's a home inspector that does radon that has no background in construction or whatnot are sometimes some of the better inspectors. However, I do come from a construction background. I had a lot of very good mentors, and I know a lot of shortcuts in the industry, and I know a lot of the shenanigans when it comes to codes and inspecting the buildings. But I digress. So with radon leading the second leading cause of lung cancer, I don't understand where if you're a miner and you're 1,000 meters in the ground where you have high radon, it's not even in the top four for causing lung cancer. Now you're down there with, you know, 50 to 100 picocaries, and they're not. These guys aren't getting lung cancer from radon. And even if they were, how do you prove it? Um, so, with that being said, there's a lot of myths when it comes to radon. Um, so, like, for instance, let me switch screens here. And, so I use AI quite a bit, and I sometimes find that having research with, a lot of different AI engines, which are basically to the narrative of the programmers that put it. But you can look at what I put up here. Are there any studies on residential homes that proves 100% that radon causes lung cancer? And so AI typically comes back with any kind of search engine that says, yeah, there's a high percentage of it, but there's no 100% certainty. And the term 100% certainty in science isn't used. But then, when I have these questions and I talk to these scientists, a lot of times these guys don't want to talk about the other side of the spectrum, right? One being that it's a second leading cause from the 1980s and onward. And then from there on, lung cancer comes from radon. So if you're a smoker, evidently, if you're a smoker and you have radon in your home of 3 picocaries or more, all of a sudden, radon or smoking pushed you over the edge. Where now you got lung cancer. You're a smoker. Let's test your house. Oh, you have high radon. Oh, it must be from radon. Do you see where I'm getting the clues? They're not all jiving in. So again, I want to repeat myself. I'm not against you getting a radon test. I just want it done correctly, and I don't despise the guys that install radon mitigation systems. I just want it installed correctly. But there's a lot of hype and skepticism of the hype scare of radon. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to buy that house because it has high radon. Well, little do most people know is that you're being exposed to radon every single day, whether you're at the office or you're in manufacturing, or you work from home. You're still getting exposed to radon. Some of the myths that I hear from realtors is that you don't have to test for radon because it's slab on grade. Well, no, the house can still get radon whether you have a basement or not. Well, that's not how I've been taught. And the other home inspectors, well, I don't care what the other home inspectors say. I'm telling you that you can still get radon on the slab on grade foundation. A lot of the homes there in Florida or in California are slab on grade. They just basically slab right on compressed rock that they press down, and you can still get radon in those areas. But I digress again. So with this, all the case studies with radon, you have a lot of myth factors. So there's a lot of scientists out there that talk about myths and everything when it comes to radon. A lot of the things that I read, I can correlate with, and yes, I do believe in some of the things that they say, but I don't believe everything that these guys say. But I do believe that radon itself is not all clear. You know, like I said, if I have a controlled lab where I pump an aquarium full of any kind of gas that I want, they're probably going to get some kind of cancers and tumors. Um, but I digress again. Um, but when you come to some of these other studies, you know, now this is coming from the Library of Medicine. They're saying that residential radon, now there's no difference between residential radon and commercial radon. It's, you know, it's the same thing. But they're saying here in the National Library of Medicine that residential radon appears to prevent lung cancer. So do you see what I'm trying to get at? Now, this is one out of several sources. A lot of the sources I get are from the European Union. I also get translations from several other regions throughout the world that are kind of siding that radon is not as bad as what most people think it is. In fact, you can take your vitamins, you're still going to die around 80 or 90. You know, heaven forbid if you die younger than that. But I'm saying that you can do all this stuff, and still there is a time for your limit, and the time for this isn't scientifically proven. So when I look at stuff like this and I read it and I go down to their references and I check out the references of this library here, it goes to more, and it's a deep dive on radon and all this other stuff that doesn't really necessarily correlate with the CDC. You know, so if I would go to here and say what states have the highest cancer rates, you know, uh, you know, lung cancer, whatnot. You know, you got Kentucky and West Virginia, and yeah, they are going to be higher with radon in those states because they have a lot of caves. They have a lot of underground systems, close, you know, elevation with water, and when you mix certain elements together and you get radon gas, yeah, these areas are going to be higher. But if you look at the cancer rates between Kentucky and Virginia, and then you go to Louisiana and some of the many other states that I've checked that also has radon, they're not like, for instance, here, no, Louisiana usually does has lower radon levels, but yet they're on the list for lung cancer. You see what I'm saying there? It's not clear. And it's really hard to prove that radon is the only leading cause of second form of lung cancer. There is no proof of what I'm saying here. Um, you know, so I mentioned the scientific method. So I don't want you to take me because I don't wear a white jacket, I don't have a stethoscope, and I'm not trying to sell you a crappy vitamin infomercial. I'm trying to state the facts. So are the scientific methods repeatable and accurate? Oh, accordingly to the AI chatbot that I decided to use, scientific methods are repeatable with high precision of reliability. So, you know, with that being said, what is more of an argument? So you have miners that go down there 100 meters in the ground, closer to the uranium, and where it converts to the isotopes of creating radon, right? To where the leading cause. What are the major health issues do miners get? A lot of them there is severe respiratory conditions. Now, I know some miners, right? I've chatted with them and whatnot. They're in their 60s and they have no issues at all. And they've been miners for, 15, 20 years. But nonetheless, radon's not even the top. You got black lung. Now, these companies that if you don't wear your proper PPE, a lot of them believe in the three strike rule. You know, three strikes, you're done, you're fired. Um, but a lot of these illnesses aren't due to radon. They're not even in the top three here. You have a lot of other illnesses. You do have the lung cancer that they do bring up radon right here, but then they also have a lot of the other things going on there. So if they don't have proper ventilation, they have diesels and other gases down there that can cause other forms of lung issues. So I guess the point that I want to make is that if you are interested in getting a radon test, skip it. Skip the 1 4 days. Skip the 1 month deal. In order, I would say the very minimum that you should do a radon test, especially in the Midwest, is probably a 6 month. The minimum 6 month, and I would suggest doing it from midsummer to mid-spring. You know, because you're getting you're still getting the 4 seasons, but you're getting the low in the summer, the moderate in the spring and the fall, and the winter you're high. You're getting a more well-rounded. My recommendation is that if you're going to buy a house and that 4 day seem to be high, you more than 4 picocarries, I'm going to die. A lot of that's in your head. Again, this is for entertainment purposes only. But I think a lot of this is a placebo that if you think it and you believe it, you're probably going to get it. But nonetheless, do I believe in putting a radon mitigation system in your home? Yeah, I do. Get tested? Yeah, there's no point not getting tested. But the point that I want to make is that if you're going to have a home inspector come in there or a commercial inspector for daycares that are testing, make sure they're doing it in sleeping areas. Not in your kitchens, not in your bathrooms, not in your laundry room, because they're being exposed to the plumbing element. Not in your basements unless it's a full finished basements that should be tested because you could sleep down there. But in crawl spaces underneath a mobile home or in other basements that aren't even finished, no, you shouldn't put a radon test in there. In fact, you can test high in the first floor, being at 3 to 4 or 5 or plus picocarries. You go on the second floor and you're less than a 1. But that's your sleeping area, right? But I digress again. I can go on off on my tangents on the things that I truly do not believe if you can't prove it. And right now, I'm on the edge that radon isn't the second leading cause. If you're a smoker, then that pushes you over the edge. Don't forget about the welders, though. Or the miners that are down there that aren't aren't the ones that are actually getting the higher majority of the respiratory system issues. But so that is your radon coach speech from a non-doctor PhD with no white jacket. I forgot it. My stethoscope is somewhere else. I can't find that either. But not to be snotty about it, but this whole radon thing is a bunch of shit.